A river can teach you different lessons depending on how long you stay. Spend a season out there and you learn where to stand. Spend a decade and you learn when to move. And when you spend 40 years, you start to understand how it breathes. Today's conversation traces the Bow River across generations, from the early days of light pressure and dominant dry fly culture to the rise of streamer fishing, heavier boater traffic, and management realities of a major tailwater. We're going to talk about the golden stones in this nocturnal insect hatch, how dam operation shaped one of the famous rivers in Alberta, and then we're going to dig into the early years. We're going to get back to how Lefty, Kreh, and Gary LaFontaine, all this came to be. Jim's got some amazing connections. We're going to hear all the stories today. We're also going to get into and hear about some of the books that Jim wrote, including Blue Ribbon Bow and some other books around Alberta. This one's jam-packed. Excited to share it with you. Here he is, Jim McLennan. How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing all right, Dave.
Great to have you on here. I've heard a lot about you over the years. We've done a few episodes up in Alberta, but I know you've traveled a lot, so we're going to talk about that and some of the books you have going today, and probably just focus on a good chunk of Alberta and the Bow River, which is obviously a big, famous river today. But maybe before we get into it, take us back. Are you still in, where are you at in Alberta these days?
I'm in a little place called Diamond Valley, which is a town of about 5,000 people, about 40 minutes southwest of Calgary.
Okay.
Far enough from the big city, but close enough to the big city, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nice. Let's start it off because I know you've done a lot in fly fishing, shows, books. Where do you start when you're trying to give somebody your bio on things? What do you think is the biggest impact you've had out there? Do you feel like, the books, the shows, what is the thing you really love?
Oh, the biggest impact I've had? Oh, I don't know.
Or maybe what do you think is the stuff you really love doing? Do you love the TV shows, or do you love writing more?
I like them both. They're really completely different. When you're writing, you really, at least theoretically, have complete control over what is going to turn up when you're finished. And when you're doing a television program or any sort of video stuff to do with fly fishing, there's so many variables that you try your best, but you really don't know. A script is just a kind of a possibility when you start.
Right. Yeah. You've got a script, but do you find when you were doing your shows, and we'll talk more about the details on them, but when you were doing them, did you kind of have this script and then it kind of got thrown out the door and you just went with it?
A lot of the time, yeah. You'd kind of have a hope what you're gonna see and what you're gonna do. But we learned this pretty quickly. Actually, I've done 2 fly fishing TV shows over the years. The first one was back in the 90s called Iron Blue Fly Fishing. We did 2 seasons for Outdoor Life TV network. And very quickly we learned, this will give you an idea of what we're talking about, that the very last thing we would do, that we would shoot, would be the introduction to the show. I mean, because there's no point in doing it at the beginning because it's probably not going to be quite accurate. So you do the show, get everything, and think, okay, well, I think this is what this is about. So let's introduce it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly how we do it here too. The podcast episodes are always the best when they're not scripted, you just kind of go with it, right? And then you do the intro after. And what was your other show that you did?
Well, more recently, like 10 years ago or so, I did 3 seasons of Fly Fusion TV, which was done by the Fly Fusion magazine people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Fly Fusion. I'm trying to think of the name of the gentleman who runs that, but
Chris Bird.
Yeah. We've had him on the podcast and talked about, I think he talked about the Upper Columbia, which I guess that's part of, maybe take us back there where you fit with let's get into the Bow River piece a little bit there. Maybe talk about the Bow. We've talked a lot about it, but how does it fit into that? What does it flow into? What's it connected to in the bigger system up there?
Okay, yeah, sure. The Bow comes from the east slopes of the Rockies in southern Alberta and flows through Calgary, and then is joined by another one of our best trout streams, the Old Man River, and it carries on as part of the Saskatchewan River Basin. And this part, I suppose, surprises people because it ends up in Hudson Bay.
That's right.
We have only one tiny bit of water in Alberta that flows into the Missouri and Mississippi drainage, and that's the Milk River. But everything else goes either, I guess everything goes to the Arctic Ocean, either via Hudson Bay or the farther north drainages in Alberta go more directly to the Arctic Ocean. But,
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
that is amazing.
not Missouri, Mississippi drainage.
No, which are substantial, but yeah, I mean the fact that it travels all the way across Canada,
Oh yeah.
right, and towards
Yep.
Ontario, and then yeah, that's amazing.
Yep. Long ways from here.
Yeah. So good. So that's kind of the boat ride. And where you're fishing, maybe take us out even higher level. Let's talk about, we talked about the shows. We'll get more into all this as we go, but I think a couple of the books you've written will shed light on Alberta. Maybe describe those books that you've put together.
Yeah, well, the first book I did was a book on the bow, and it was called Blue Ribbon Bow. It's out of print really completely now, except for whatever you can find in a used bookstore, sometimes online at an outrageous price. But it was done in, I think it was 1986 it came out. So it's, and then it was revised sometime, I can't remember, maybe late 90s or something like that. So if you find a copy, it's going to have, it's going to be dated for sure. But that was the first one. And then I did one called Streams of Alberta, which just talked about, trout streams of Alberta.
Yeah.
Looking at each drainage and what the, what the fish species and the type of fishing and the bugs and fly patterns and all the usual stuff. And that one has basically just gone out of print recently. And we're talking about a revision. There actually was one revision. We're talking about possibly another revision in the future, but nothing has really been settled on that yet. So that's where the book writing started. Prior to that, I'd written some magazine articles and things, and have carried on through the whole time.
That's perfect. No, I think that's the perfect kind of segue into talking about this, because I think Alberta, it's all the provinces are huge, right? But I think that it's interesting because Alberta has the bow, it's got some big cities, and then it's got all the northern areas. How do you describe when you break that down, or maybe how did your book break down Alberta? How did you talk about that? I guess it's focused on trout, so does that mean it was more south, more southern?
There would be certainly more words written about the south, because that's actually where there are more of our good trout streams are in the south. I mean, Alberta it's a big province. I mean, I guess not all the Canadian provinces are big. The Maritimes are not, but Alberta is really big. If you look on a map, northern Alberta is way up there. The northern boundary of Alberta is with the Northwest Territories. So anyway, most of the trout streams of the Alberta book is dealing with the more southern streams. Now, I took it drainage by drainage, so there's a chapter on the northern drainages, the Athabasca river system, and that, but they take up less space in the book.
Yeah,
and so that's what I did. I went sort of drainage by drainage. Started with the Old Man in the south, then the Bow drainage, and then the Red Deer, and then the North Saskatchewan, and then the Athabasca, and then the Peace River system way up north too in Alberta.
Okay. What is when you break down the top or the most famous rivers, I'm guessing the Bow is number one. How would you break that? What are maybe the top 10 trout streams that are out there? And did you also add Stillwater in those?
No, it was just moving water.
Okay.
The top 10, well, certainly the 10, well, I don't know if I'll get the 10.
Or maybe not, or just give us the top, yeah.
The Old Man, or the Bow is certainly the best known beyond Alberta, and then it would be the Old Man River system, which is like one drainage south of about 2 hours from Calgary. You're into the Old Man system, and there's a bunch of streams there. The Old Man itself, and it has some main tributaries. The Crow's Nest River, which would be on that list for sure, and a couple of other tributaries of the Old Man. Those would be the best known. Once you get north of Calgary, northwest of Calgary, there are quite a number of brown trout streams in our foothills coming off the mountains. They're mostly pretty temperamental streams. They don't have high numbers of fish, and it's very easy to take a kind of random visit to one of these and not really see much. So
right, are these cutthroat streams?
No, these would be brown trout streams.
Oh, brown trout.
The Old Man and its tributaries are rainbows and cutthroats, and bull trout too. We still have bull trout, but northwest of Calgary, it's mostly brown trout.
And then as you get up to Edmonton in that area, does it just start to get more less trout and more kind of still water as you go from there?
Yes, yeah. If you look at the placement of the Rocky Mountains, they sit on an angle through Alberta, kind of running. Let's see.
The border of BC and Alberta, right?
Yeah, BC and Alberta border is sort of diagonally from right to left, top to bottom, if you're looking at a map. So Edmonton is much farther from the mountains than Calgary is. And so Calgary's closer to the mountains and closer to the cooler streams where trout can live, and a different type of streams too. The best concentration of our moving water fisheries are certainly from, maybe there's a city in between Edmonton and Calgary called Red Deer, maybe from west of Red Deer to west of, all the way to the Montana border. That's where the best of it is.
Yeah, that's the best. Okay. And that's all the trout streams. Awesome. Well, and then, of course, the Bow River we mentioned, and you wrote another book on that. Where do you start with the Bow River when, if somebody's, kind of new to maybe fishing it? Maybe you could take us into that book, the first book you did there. How did you cover the Bow? Because it's got some different segments, right? It's got some segments, areas that are known for really big fish, and then some places higher up. Describe that. How do you describe the Bow?
Well, it's interesting and I guess fairly complex, maybe. It comes out of the mountains in Banff National Park, and up there it's entirely a freestone stream, not particularly productive as far as water chemistry and bug life. And the native fish throughout the Bow system were West Slope cutthroats and bull trout, and they are mostly gone from the Bow system. Not entirely. They're pretty much gone from the Bow proper, except for the real extreme sort of upper ends. There's still some bull trout there. There are brown trout throughout the river from about the town of Banff on downstream till well below Calgary. But the part of the Bow that people will have heard about most is the part sort of in and downstream of Calgary for about 50 miles. And that's pretty interesting because there's about 1.6 million people in Calgary, and the river that flows right through it is a really good trout stream. And that, I think, is probably the distinctive thing and a unique thing about the Bow is that there's not many streams going through that many people that are still hospitable to trout.
Still blue ribbon, right? Great.
Yeah. I mean, blue ribbon is not an official designation here like it is in some places in the States, but it's just kind of a descriptive.
Yeah. And what was the name of your book? It was what was the name of the?
It's Blue Ribbon Bow, yeah.
Yeah, Blue Ribbon Bow, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you call in Canada? Do you have a name for if it's not blue ribbon, what are your top streams called?
No, we don't have anything. I know, I guess Montana's got blue ribbon and Colorado's got gold medal or something. And
oh yeah, I always think the blue ribbon in the States is kind of just a general. Maybe there isn't an official thing for all states, but yeah, blue ribbon seems to be the name.
Yeah, no, we don't have an official ranking system. It's just what people kind of glom onto for description. And the publisher thought it was a good title, and I did too. So
yeah, no, I think it is. I think they're both good titles. So and then it's a tailwater coming out? Is there a big reservoir out there?
Yeah, there's a number of dams upstream of the city of Calgary, between the mountains and Calgary, and the last one, the most downstream one, is it's called the Bears Paw Reservoir, and it was actually built in I think 1925, really to stabilize the flow of the river through the city. The instability was caused by some power dams further upstream, and so it's kind of a restabilizing dam, and which helps. Stability is a nice thing for trout, and so that's one of the things that has created the exceptional fishery in and downstream of Calgary. The other is the water treatment plants in the city that Calgary through the years has done a pretty good job of keeping up their water treatment, so that what goes back into the river is not killing everything downstream. It actually provides some nutrients, some phosphates and nitrates that allow for a heavier growth of insects and aquatic plants. So the combination of the more stable river because of the Bearspaw Dam, and then the addition of some nutrients has allowed the river to carry more fish, and fish that grow more quickly than most other places, certainly in Alberta.
Right. Yeah, that's
it's a little unusual that way. There is sort of debate over whether it's a true tailwater or not. It doesn't have all the things we think of tailwater, which would be, bottom draw, deep reservoir, cold water temperatures. It doesn't have that. The reservoir is not that kind of reservoir.
No.
But it is downstream of a dam. If that's how you define tailwater, then yeah.
San Juan Rodworks started with a simple belief: great fly rods and gear shouldn't cost a fortune. As a family-run company, they focus on building high-quality fly fishing products that perform on the water without the premium price tag. You can try San Juan Rodworks for 30 days, risk-free right now, and if you're not satisfied, send it back for a full refund. You can go to sanjuanrodworks.com. That's SANJUAN rodworks.com. Pescador on the Fly offers a full range of fly fishing gear for any angler at any budget, with premium rods delivered directly to you. The El-Ray G6 is the most packable, high-performance fly rod on the market, performing like a 4-piece rod but with unmatched portability in 6 pieces. And you can get 10% off your next order right now if you use the code WETFLYSWING at pescadoronthefly.com. Never fly without your G6. Discover the El-Ray series and more at pescadoronthefly.com. Yeah, and it's kind of unique. It sounds like because of the way the water quality is managed, it's a perfect fit for that area. Is it managed? Is that a focus? Is the trout fishing a big focus, or are there other things that take precedent over that area or for the river?
Almost everything takes precedent over the quality and the requirements of the river as a trout stream. The fact that it's still here is probably more good luck than any sort of intentional.
No kidding.
Yeah. As the city grew, the needs for more sophisticated and larger treatment of its domestic water increased, and so it was done, and that helped both the people and the fish. But it's been kind of a sore point with a lot of us who've been around the river and the fishery for a lot of years, that it's never really been cared for as carefully as it should be. And we're really pretty fortunate that it's still around and still a good trout stream.
Really?
Lots of bad things could have happened.
And could there be some things that could still happen looking ahead?
Oh yeah, everything that puts stress on the river is increasing. From the number of the population of the city, the climate change, increased water usage. One of the things we're dealing with now is there has been an identified decline in the number, particularly of rainbow trout, in the last 10 years or so, and the Alberta government has identified 3 main causes of this. One is still the instability in more minor ways of the flows through the city, because of the requirements from the power dams and things. It's not completely stable, as that's one of the stressors. The other one is catch and release fishing mortality, which they believe has a significant effect on the population of fish. And the one that I'm currently involved with a new conservation group up here is what's called entrainment of trout in irrigation canals. In and downstream of Calgary, there's 2 places where water is diverted from the river for irrigation and goes into canals and out to the irrigated farmland east of Calgary. And these are fairly significant canals, and the fish just have unrestricted access to these, just because there's nothing to stop them from going down in these canals. So significant numbers of fish move into these irrigation canals, and they're probably happy enough through the summer, but come the end of irrigation season in the fall, the water to the canals is shut off. The tap is shut off, actually, and the canals dry up. So whatever fish are still there are pretty much doomed. Now, the local Trout Unlimited chapter for many years has conducted what they call a trout rescue. They go down and electrofish the canals.
Oh yeah, we've heard about that.
Yeah, you might have heard of that. It's a neat initiative what's wrong with it is that it started, I think, in 1998, and the idea was not that this is going to solve the problem of losing fish to the irrigation canals. It was going to return a few of them to the river and kind of make a point, make a statement that this ought to be addressed properly, which would be the installation of devices and that can keep the fish out of the.
Yeah, you got to keep them out of there in the first place. That would solve the problem.
Yeah, because they catch a lot of fish in these fish rescues in a tiny portion of the canals, and that's what's so disturbing. I mean, it's over the years, there's been over 1 million fish.
Wow.
There's been not all trout, but lots and lots of trout. Every year, it's thousands of them that they put back in the river. But I think if I get my numbers right, the main fish rescue on one of the canals takes place, and I think about 3. Okay, I'm going to go all Canadian here.
Yeah, let's hear it.
3 kilometers of the canal, and the canal is 66 kilometers long. So
yeah, which is a kilometer. Yeah, I mean, I think we got that 1,000 meters. That's pretty decent size. Like a kilometer is like a quarter of a mile or something like that.
Yeah, well, between a quarter and a half, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, the fish rescue was never intended to be a solution. It was intended to help a little bit and to make the government aware of the problem. But so far, nothing has been done. So there's this new conservation group that started in Alberta called the Trout Trust that I'm involved in with another half a dozen people who are concerned about the same thing and trying to push the provincial government to solve this problem because it's so clearly the right thing to do. I sometimes tell people when we're talking about this, nobody thinks it's okay.
No, yeah, nobody loves us. Even the farmers, I'm sure, don't love it. Yeah.
It's just time for something to be done. And what really gets people's attention, we've put together about a 15-minute film on this issue of entrainment, and in there, one of the points we make is the idea or the knowledge of fish lost to irrigation canals in Alberta first appeared in a government report, I guess it was a report to the government, and we put a big pause in the film here, or short pause, where we say that the year that this report came out saying there's significant damage to the trout populations in the rivers because so many fish are caught in irrigation canals, that was first identified in 1910.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been going on, whatever that is, 115 years, 116 years, with no attempt to fix it.
No attempt. Yeah.
No.
And you have some not easy fixes, but I mean, you could put fish screens, right? I mean, that's the thing that you could put in there. They're pretty common all around the world, keeping fish out of irrigation.
Yeah, there are lots. We've been looking into it. There are a lot of different technologies. A simple screen wouldn't work on the bow because they would get clogged with. There's a lot of plant life.
Oh, yeah.
And when we have a runoff and lots of debris comes down in the spring. And it's a big river. Anyway, but there's other technology. Some of them are really interesting. Some of them use light. Some of them use sound. Some of them use sort of, I guess, the opposite of decoys. They put predator sort of statues or whatever over the water to keep, I guess probably bird predators. Anyway,
yeah,
it's the opposite of decoys, whatever you call them.
Sure.
And some of them, like they'll make a barrier of bubbles. There's all kinds of things that can be done depending on the specifics of the situation, and we're just pushing the government to figure this out, and because frankly, it's just stupid to allow this to keep going. And the reason it keeps going is because there's other priorities.
There's other priorities. Yeah, it comes back to a funding thing, right? I'm sure the government would love to fix it, but they're probably thinking, well, we got these other things, and so really, it's finding some funding, right? Which the TU does have funding. There's funding sources, but we're probably talking millions and billions of dollars probably to fix this.
Probably in the millions, depending on which structure would make the most sense and be the most successful.
Yeah.
One of the things we're going to try and push for the thing is it's going to take some more, investigation to figure out which is the best structure and then what it's going to cost and then who's going to pay for it. And the other thing we always point out in this business is that we're not, this group of ours, this Trout Trust, we're not opposed to irrigation. We know
right.
Farming is a big deal in southern Alberta, and
we got to eat. We got to eat food, right?
We got to eat. It's dry out there, and we need irrigation. We're not saying we don't want the water.
Yeah, you don't want to remove all the dams and make a natural stream.
No, we don't want to stop irrigation. We just want to stop the fish from getting
Wow.
out.
Well, it sounds like a pretty good something that we could maybe get involved with. So where would be the place? You mentioned that video? Where can we find that video to look it up?
Well, it's just been finished up. If people can find out more about this specific problem we have a website called thetrouttrust.com.
Thetrouttrust.com.
Actually, .com or .ca will get you there.
Okay, The Trout Trust. Okay.
There's a whole bunch of information there, and before long, the film will be placed there. We just had the first showing of the film, last week at the IF4 Film Fest in Calgary.
Oh, you did? Is this running at the IF? Because I think IF4 is running at the fly fishing shows down here too.
It is, but our film is not part of the festival films. It was kind of a special presentation in Alberta.
Yeah, we see it at thetrouttrust.com. It's awesome. Yeah, you got the sign the petition. Yeah, you got it all here. So this is a great place. So we'll put that link in the show notes so people can take action.
That would be great.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're always, I think that all the streams have some of these issues, right? And it's amazing the bow has been, what it is, right? It's still this powerhouse. Maybe describe that. Where, you hear about these big fish, when you think of the bow, are there certain segments that really have the chance to find those bigger fish? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's really from, the southern part of Calgary, the downstream part of Calgary, down mostly, I suppose, about 50 miles. There's a little town called Carsland. It's a farming town downstream of the city, downstream of Calgary. And certainly the brown trout and the rainbows continued downstream of there. There is an irrigation that's where one of the canals comes off the river at Carsland. Downstream of there is it's still a very good trout fishery. It's just really inaccessible. It enters an Indian reserve shortly downstream, and the only way to access it down there is with a power boat. And there is some people, that do that, but the more accessible part of the river is always considered to be the Calgary to Carsland stretch, because there's a number of public accesses and drift boat, boat ramps and that sort of stuff. So there's 50 or 60 miles of the river where you can find the big fish. And one interesting thing is, when I guided on the bow a long, long time ago, back in the 70s and 80s, it was still a river known for big fish. Lots of fish in the 16 to 20 inch range back then. But what there are more of now, there are fewer fish overall, still a good average size, but the chance at a fish of 2 feet or longer there's more of those caught now than there really ever was when I was working on the river. I'm not really sure why that is. Well, it's had pretty restrictive regulations, about catching release for quite a long time. That's probably something to do with it. And but this past summer especially, it was a really there was an awful lot of big brown trout being caught, at least. And the reason I know this is because I saw it on Facebook.
Yeah.
So it's true.
Yeah, you've seen the photos. Well,
yeah.
That's the interesting thing always about the social media is you see it, you see the best of the best, and you don't see the days when people are getting skunked and stuff. But no, that's good to hear. It's some pretty good stuff. And we've done a couple of podcasts on it, and I've heard about some of these fish. In fact, one of the guides there, I think he has a fly shop. I can't remember. I'll have to track down we'll put a link in the show notes. But he was talking about when he started, he had this guarantee. I think it was something like you would catch a fish over 20 inches or 24 inches or something huge, or your money back. You know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah.
That's bold. Because the other thing that's always been true in my sort of observation is that it's a temperamental river.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I always tell people, you haven't been skunked in the bowl yet. You haven't fished very long.
Yeah, and I just found a link to it. So it's episode 777. It was Josh Nugent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Josh Nugent. So I don't think he's still guaranteeing that. But it worked for marketing. It was good. And then we had another good episode, episode 461. That was back in 23 with Barry White, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Yeah.
He talked about some of the high level stuff on floating the river and stuff. So yeah, I think we have a couple of great episodes and out there, but maybe, like you said, what was it like when you're guiding? Did you do that for quite a number of years or?
It was very different. I started in probably it was 1975 or 1976, maybe. I was going to university in Edmonton. That's where I grew up. And I was keen on fly fishing, and I'd fly fish the bow a little bit. And a friend of mine was running a little a little tackle shop in Edmonton, and he was going to expand to Calgary and open a second shop in Calgary. This wasn't just a fly fishing store, but a general store. And he also knew about the fishing in the bow and was going to start a guide service. So because I had fished the river a little bit and had my summers off from going to university, I got to be the guide. So I was perhaps the first, quite likely the first sort of full-time guide, if you want to call it full-time, back in the 70s.
Were you first in the 70s? Were there a number of guides on the bow then?
No. This was sort of the beginning of it. I think it pretty much started with this story I'm talking about.
No
here.
kidding.
I came down for the summers and guided, and then it wasn't too long before we got some other guides to work with us. But it was pretty interesting because there was essentially nobody fishing, and when we got a few other guides, maybe by the early 80s, we had 4 guides working the river. And I remember we would get together at the hotel to pick the clients up in the morning. And we would, if somebody claimed one stretch of river, 1 10-mile stretch of river, one of the other guides would say, well, I wanted to fish that stretch today.
Right. Wow.
So, yeah.
That's amazing.
How are you going to be there if you're there?
Right. Was Barry White out there then?
Yep. Barry worked for us.
Oh, he did?
Yep. Shortly after we started that.
Gotcha.
I really like to point out that the way the bow got known was through some prominent American fly fishers and writers who sort of heard about it through the grapevine and came up, and we had actually invited some of them. Lee Perkins, the CEO of Orvis for all those years, he came up. He was actually a friend of my father's, so I had known him since I was 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
And so he came up and he wrote about it in the Orvis News. And then A.J. McLennan came up, and Ernest Schwiebert came up, and Gary Borger came up in later years. And all the big guys came to fish here because of the bow. And especially in the early years, when somebody was going to take them fishing, it was usually me because there just wasn't anybody else around. So perhaps the best thing that circumstance did for me was I got to fish with almost all of my fly fishing heroes.
Right, the greatest fisherman out there. You did. What was that like? Did you kind of pinch yourself as you were going?
Oh yeah. For once, I think I was aware enough to try and make the most of it, and I asked a lot of questions, and I stood beside Lefty when he was fishing to rising fish, and the same thing with Lee Perkins and Gary Borger and Doug Swisher and all those guys, and I just soaked it in,
Wow.
and soaked it up. So it was a wonder. It would be like, I don't know, some young golfer getting to caddy for all the greats.
Well, it'd be like, go back to any of the sports. You're sitting there with whoever your hero is.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you were out there with Lefty Kreh?
Well, let's see. I think it was 1980, so almost 30.
Yeah.
27 or something.
Yeah, so 30. So yeah, right in your prime. And Lefty
Kreh.
Yeah. What was he out of all those guys you mentioned? I mean, Lefty. I'm trying to think. Well, yeah, Gary's still alive. There's a number of, but who was the most? You know what I mean? Like out of all of them, was Lefty? Who stands out?
Well, Lefty stood out because he was he was Lefty. He was so gregarious and personable and knew more jokes.
He did. He was a joke teller.
He was a joke machine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could bring up any topic. He'd say, "Hey, I got one here for you," and he'd tell you about that. And he was really, he was really big on, as he described it, sharing knowledge rather than just displaying knowledge. And so I learned a bunch of neat stuff from him.
Yeah. What does that mean? So sharing versus displaying, what's the difference there?
Well, I think he was saying that maybe some of the other writers that he felt were more trying to make themselves look good rather than helping the reader learn something, and he made that distinction, and he certainly carried through with it. All these guys that I fished with, I didn't find any of them that were anything other than personable and willing to share.
Yeah.
I think they kind of, I wasn't too subtle probably in my quest for knowledge with them. And I think they were almost all kind of picked up on that. Here's this young guy. He's really soaking this stuff in. So I like that. I'm going to help them if I can.
Sure.
And a number of them, I kept in touch with Charles Brooks, who wrote a book, some books. He lived in West Yellowstone and wrote a number of books. He became a really good mentor to me and did a foreword for one of my books. And
Yeah.
Charlie Waterman, who is, I know I'm talking about guys who are gone now. But
Yeah, we've heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah, did a foreword. And Lee Perkins did a foreword for
Oh,
a
he
book.
did?
And,
Yeah.
yeah.
What was your...
Sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I was going to say that I have this probably the strongest connection or had to Lee Perkins from Orvis because of the long connection with my dad, and he came up to fish quite a number of times, and I subsequently, and he was also a bird hunter. That's the other passion I had, bird hunting, and I hunted with him quite a few times, and he was never, he never say, "Now sit down over there, Jim, I'm going to teach you something." It was never like that. I just was watching and doing stuff with him, and realizing how he knew how good he was at enjoying the hunting and the fishing. And he would love to laugh. And I know one time he told me that he was talking about both hunting and fishing. He said that if you're only happy when it all turns out perfect, you're not going to be happy all that often.
No.
He said you got to be completely
right.
okay with partial success.
Exactly. How did your dad know Lee?
Well, this was before Lee was, before he bought Orvis, which happened in 1965. He worked for a company in Cleveland, where he was from, and that made automotive equipment, like welding machines and stuff like that. My dad in Edmonton sold some of the stuff that the company Lee worked for manufactured.
Wow.
So Lee would come up, on sales trips, and after the first sales trip, he realized that he and my dad had a lot in common. That mostly the hunting stuff then, because my dad was not that much of a fly fisher, but he was a really avid waterfowl and upland bird hunter. And so one of the stories they both used to tell was that after they realized this connection, Lee would always schedule his sales trips to Alberta in October so that he and Dad could go hunting before or after their meetings, the sales meetings. And,
Nice.
and the joke was that back in those days, businesses were always closed on Sundays. This was like after 65, before 65. Businesses were closed on Sundays. So my dad would say to his staff, "Okay, well, this Sunday you're going to," and also you couldn't hunt on Sundays.
Oh.
So he'd say they'd have to have the sales meeting on Sunday so that Dad and Lee wouldn't lose another possible day of hunting. So that was not all that popular with my dad's staff, but that's the way they did it.
Oh, wow. So they worked on Sunday.
They worked on Sunday because Dad and Lee couldn't hunt on Sunday.
Yeah. Gotcha. Wow. There you go. That's some pretty hardcore dedication.
Oh, yeah.
And then when did Lee buy Orvis?
1965.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, 1965.
Yeah.
Wow. And of course, it's still the Perkins family. It's been an amazing story because, and I have a connection to Orvis as well. I mean, my dad had a little fly shop back in the day, and Orvis was a big, a big brand that I knew. I mean, everything I had, it was great, a great company. And then I've learned a lot about, over just through the podcast, the conservation and how great of a company they are, and
yeah, so, I always, and I told Lee this even a long time ago, I don't think Orvis ever gets enough credit for their conservation work.
No, they don't.
They don't brag about it enough.
They don't brag about it. No. And that's why it's fun to talk about it, because I think that they're just quietly, doing their thing, and people, doing the right thing.
Yeah. Let's see. It's third generation Perkins now running the show.
Yeah. We've had, I think it was the son of Leon,
it was Perk.
Yeah. We had Perk. Perk was great. He talked about his trip down to like the Bahamas for a year. He took off and fished do you know Perk a little bit?
Yeah. I know Perk a bit. Yeah. I haven't been in contact with him, but yeah, did he do some kind of a sailing trip or something?
Yeah. He went down. He bought a giant boat, or he described. I'll get a link in those show notes. But he got this giant boat, and he just basically it was his whatever you call it. His he took a year off, and like who wouldn't? You know what I mean? We should all be doing that, taking a year off and going. But yeah, he caught barracuda. He was running. It was his boat. He was the captain. It was. Pretty cool story. So yeah, and now of course they're still going. That family.
Now it's not Perk's son Simon.
Yeah, Simon.
Yeah,
Simon. Cool. Well, so that's the connection back. And did you guys start with your dad? You said, were you living in Edmonton when your dad was working there with Perk, or was that, or with
No, I lived there. Well, basically until moved down to Calgary to start the guiding stuff in the
okay.
mid 70s, I guess.
Gotcha. So what were you guys fishing? So were you and not Perk, the founder was
Lee, yeah.
Lee was the founder. So were your dad, where were they fishing, or were they just hunting?
They were just hunting.
Yeah.
It was quite a long time before Lee came up to fish. After I had started guiding, I'd stayed in touch with him, and I just said, you should come up and fish. We got a pretty good river here. And finally, he and his other son Dave came up for one day in September, and we had really, really good fishing. And then he wrote about it, and then and that's when I think we were contacted by McLean and AJ McLean and some of the other guys and Lefty and stuff who wanted to come up, and that sort of got the ball rolling on the whole guiding. Yeah.
We've heard many of the stories on this podcast. Togiak River Lodge is one of the great destinations for swinging flies for Chinook, stripping for coho all day, and unwinding in a lodge right on the riverbank of the Togiak River. With access to all 5 salmon species plus rainbows, Dolly Varden, and more, Togiak offers a true Alaskan experience. Picture over 30 miles of river, seasoned guides, high-quality boats, and low fishing pressure. It's fly fishing Alaska at its best. I'll be heading up this summer, so reach out to Jordan and the crew to see what dates they have available this year. You can learn more right now at wetflyswing.com/Togiak. That's Togiak, Togiak. Alaskan fly fishing like you've always dreamed about. That's really cool. And so, so that's a good backstory there. What, on the river, let's again take it to there. So we talked about some of those big browns. In your book that you wrote, how did you break that down? Did you talk about the Bow River book? Did you talk about that section, or how did you describe, was it like tips and tricks?
There's some of that. I talked about the whole river because that's what the publisher wanted to do. But certainly the most focus was on that Calgary to Carsland section. And I went through the seasons and the hatches and the fly patterns, the usual sort of stuff. And then later on in the book, there was some conservation stuff about what was going on the river back then and what the concerns were for the future were, and all that kind of thing. So
yeah. Okay.
Tried to be pretty comprehensive.
Sure. And most people are floating that in drift boats. Is that the common way people are fishing it?
That's the most common way. Yeah, it's a very gentle river. You can certainly do it in a raft, and people do it in pontoon boats and stuff like that too. So it's that section of the river. It's a big, gentle river.
It is
kind of like the Missouri. It has more riffles and broken water than the Missouri does, but it's
okay. Yeah,
it's not a dangerous river unless you're doing something really dumb.
Yeah. What were the techniques you were guiding on mostly when you were guiding on, or when you wrote the book?
Yeah, well, when I was first on the river, what everybody, not that there were that many people, but those of us fishing and guiding, we started out fishing streamers, leech patterns and muddlers and that sort of stuff, and casting them to the banks while we were on the drift, and then stopping and getting out and waiting a nice run and swinging the streamers and leech patterns downstream. But it wasn't very long until I started finding rising fish, and I don't know if they were there all along and I just never saw them, or whether they just started doing that. But sometime in the late 70s, I started finding rising fish, and then the more I looked for them, the more I found them, and we had really good pale morning dun hatches and really good evening caddis, and then blue-winged dolls. We have most of the big tough bugs, and when again this was sort of timed with the surge in famous fly fishing visitors.
Okay,
because when Lefty was here, and
like was this like 70s, 80s?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
late 70s and through most of the 80s, and we had just really good, really reliable rising fish dry fly fishing. You could expect to find rising fish most of the time, most days. And so that was the initial reputation of the river, was Lefty called it the best dry fly stream in the world.
He did.
After he'd fished it, yeah. And so that part of the river, or that type of fishing, has fallen off.
Oh, it has. So the bug hatches aren't there as much?
It doesn't seem like it. It still supports a reasonable number of fish and some great big fish. But a lot of the best dry fly fishing now is probably with big dry flies. We have a pretty good hatch of one of the golden stone flies, the one that
Oh yeah.
sometimes night stone or a short wing stone. That and hoppers are probably the
Oh,
way.
okay. So you don't get the giant salmon flies, but you get the goldens.
Right. We get that, particularly that golden that's almost completely nocturnal, so you don't hardly ever see them.
Oh yeah, this is the one with the wings that aren't totally developed.
The half-length wings, the males, yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's cool. Yeah, so those are the ones that are. Well, I guess they're all crawling to shore, but so you do get some big fish and big bugs on the near the
Yep.
banks and stuff.
Yep, you do. And it's kind of an interesting way to fish because it seems like pretty much everything about that bug is nocturnal. They emerge at night. They mate at night, and the females lay eggs at night. So
Huh.
you wouldn't even. It's very hard to. You don't see the adults much unless you're out at the right, in the dark, with the light. But if you start looking around at the rocks, you'll see the empty shucks that tells you this is going on. But they just do not like the sun. So there's a number of different golden stoneflies,
Yeah,
and some of them are perfectly active in a nice sunny afternoon, but not this one.
but not this one. How do you fish these nocturnal ones?
Well, and I can't take any credit for figuring this out, but some of the, for a while there was some, well, there still are, I guess, but the guys who have become some of the prominent guides on the Bow, who started fishing the river and guiding on the river like 20 or 25 years ago, kind of figured this out. And what they do is they float the river starting really early in the morning. Once they know these bugs are around, kind of by the calendar, by seeing the shucks on the rocks. And by putting the boat in before sunrise, which at our latitude means
Cold.
by 5.
5, and then what month is this? Like June,
This would be
July?
July, yeah.
Yeah, July.
And if it just fishing the big bugs blind, they're not looking for, fish actively eating them.
So you're fishing dry flies,
Yeah, fishing a big foam, a size 6
chubby
foam.
Chernobyl or something like that.
Exactly, or what's that other one called? I can't remember.
Yeah. The sofa pillow was an old classic. Sofa pillow.
Exactly. Yeah. But fishing the foam versions of those and fishing them in quite shallow water, because most of the theory being, and it seems to be true, that when the female stoneflies are laying their eggs, they're doing it. They don't fly out into the middle of the river. It's a big river. They're along the banks, along the edges, and then the fish will move in there and be working on them. And the fish they'll stay there until something moves them out in the morning. It may be just sunlight, or it may be the first boat that goes by or something. But kind of counting on there being some fish in relatively shallow water really early in the morning, because they spent the night there working on these stoneflies. So you throw these big bugs and you catch a few. It's some of the biggest fish are caught that way. I mean, I guess the absolute biggest are probably caught on streamers, but there's lots of these 20 to 24-inch fish every year caught on by doing this.
No kidding.
And then, of course, your trip is done by noon. Maybe.
Yeah, you got plenty of, and this is July, so Julys are pretty amazing up there, I'm guessing, that time of year.
We have long days. Yeah, you can fish till 10 at night if you want to. But,
yeah, that's great. You could do your golden stone in the morning, take a little mid-afternoon break, and then hit streamers in the later.
Yep. That's a good plan for the summer, that's for sure.
Wow, that's so cool. So you got the stones, and then what are some of the others? So it sounds like the other hatches, other than streamers, wet flies, is that something you ever got into out there?
A little bit, not an awful lot, but we had the other. I think probably at least my two favorite hatches, the ones I was most familiar with, were the pale morning duns, which was a sort of late June through late July deal, and then the caddis all summer long, and even we have a pre-runoff caddis, like a Mother's Day caddis, and then that after runoff, which should be like sometime in mid to late June, then we get the summer caddis flies that are really a late afternoon, evening deal. And they would be really heavy hatches. There's still some of that going on. That fishing is quite late, like the last hour of daylight, maybe. And so that was good ones. Then we have blue-wing olives in the fall in varying numbers, and tricos in the fall in kind of unreliable numbers, maybe, or not quite as reliable as they used to be. Those would be the main ones.
Yeah, those are the main ones. And it's probably, I'm guessing, changing a little bit with, climate change. Does it feel like things are getting less snow up there and a little bit warmer during the year, during the winter?
Yep, it sure does. We had a day last week. We've had a really warm spell the last 3 weeks here, and we haven't really had much cold weather at all. But we had a day of here I go Canadianizing on it. It was 18. High was 18 degrees, which is about 65.
Yeah, 65. So we were just in Denver at the show, and it was like mid 60s. Like,
Yep, same warm.
yeah, we're
warm
not far. Yeah, that's just down south of here. I just follow the Rockies down.
Yep, exactly. So, yeah, and I've read a little bit, and you probably have too. There's seems to be something going on in a negative way regarding, I guess, aquatic insects and insects
Just insects in general.
in the world. I think, yeah, and I don't know I don't think anybody knows what it is, but I know there's a couple of, like somewhere, I can't remember what river in the U.S., maybe it was an Oregon river that had a good salmon fly hatch, doesn't have it anymore.
I'm not sure. Oregon definitely still has, at least the Deschutes is the big river.
It says, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that one still. But, I think there's definitely some change. We've been talking to the Salmon Fly Project. We're going to have them on the podcast. They're doing some bug entomology, and they're collecting. In fact, I met with the one of the Hardy ambassadors at the show, and he was talking about how, it's a big push. Entomology has been a big thing for me. I've always loved learning, and I think that the more we can document, that's the first part, like knowing what species are there and then knowing how that's changing, right? That's a big part of it.
Get the baseline data so you know.
Well, so I think, like I was saying, I think it's interesting with the bugs, the entomology, because it tells us a lot. Like you said, stoneflies, if those species are there or missing, it teaches us. So we're going to be following the Salmon Fly Project and doing some research there, and hopefully I think there's a lot of good things we can do here, but maybe I wanted to hear a little bit more too about we talked about the shows you did. Maybe when that first show you did, what was the name again, and when was that going? When was that airing?
Yeah, the first TV show was called Iron Blue Fly Fishing, and I think we did it like 97 and 98.
Okay.
And so we did 13 episodes each year. It's an idea that a friend of mine had. He was sort of looking for something to do, and he's a real creative guy. And so he and another friend started a little production company and decided, well, let's see if we could make a fly fishing TV show. And they wanted me to sort of be the guy. And so we did a pilot show. That's the way it used to work. I don't know how it works now, but you make a show and you send it to networks and say, do you want a season's worth of these? And so we did that, and Outdoor Life Network said, yep, we'll sign a contract to have you produce 13 of these shows. And back then they didn't pay a lot of money, but they paid some money for the shows. I don't even think it works like that anymore. And so we did these shows, and we learned all kinds of things about, as we talked about earlier, about the unreliability of fish when you're
right. Was this on? Were you guys fishing mostly the bow?
No, we did a show on the bow, but we moved around a little bit in the Northwest. We did quite a few of them here in Alberta. We did quite a few in Alberta. We did the rest of Alberta, and we did several in BC. We did a few in Montana. We did one fishing for Arctic grayling in the Northwest Territories. So we did move around some. And the way it worked then, you could afford to do that.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it was, I guess the main lesson was you just never trust a fish.
Never trust fish. And where can you find those, that series out there anywhere?
I'm not sure if you can or not. It's Iron Blue Fly Fishing.
Yeah.
There used to be some on YouTube, but I really haven't looked for a long time.
That's one of those things that's interesting. It's like you have these things and you wonder, where they're going to be, how long they're going to be out there. But I'm sure YouTube, we could probably track it down.
It might be able to, yeah.
Yeah. And then the show with Fly Fusion, when was that? When did that release?
That was, I think that was about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That we probably started, and we did 3 seasons. Now, those are only 6 shows each.
Yeah.
And in fact, the last series of shows was really turned out to be just for online. It never did go directly to TV. And it was sort of frustrating because apparently the proper length of a TV show that's being shown on online was about 7 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we were shooting with the intention of getting whatever it is, 23-minute show for television. But everybody said, no, that's too long. They won't watch it all. And if it's online, people have such a short attention, and you got to keep it short, which was really annoying to me.
Right. Wow. Yeah. How do you in 6 or 7 minutes?
You don't.
Yeah. That's like, how would you do it? It's almost like that's a short, that's not even a show.
The first time I saw one, I thought, well, that's kind of a nice preview. I'd like to watch the whole show.
Right.
And I said, that is the whole show. Oh,
that's funny. Yeah. I feel like part of it is, obviously people's attention spans have gotten smaller, but I think, what we're doing right here is a testament to the fact the long form still works.
Well, that's true. And, my argument that never got anywhere was, well, if people don't want to watch the whole show, they'll turn it off.
Exactly. And that's the same thing with this.
Here for 5 minutes, but the people who want to stay can stay.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm right now, like there's a bunch of, I'm a podcasting addict myself, and I was just listening to, Joe Rogan, he's got Alex Honnold, who's the guy that just, free soloed. I've been on this free solo climbing kick watching.
Okay.
It's the guy, I don't know if you heard Onyx Hall. He basically free solo climbed El Capitan without ropes.
I think I heard about that.
Yeah, so he just recently climbed the 11th tallest building without ropes. You know what I mean? Like crazy. But I was listening to that, and that episode is 3 hours long.
Wow.
And so I'm not listening to the whole thing, but it's on my Spotify right now, and I just drove an hour, I listened to it, and later today I'll probably listen to it. And so it's long form. People listen, but you don't have to listen to it all like right now. That's the great thing about it. Like this episode will be out there indefinitely, and people can listen to a chunk of it, right? It's kind of cool.
Exactly. That's a good thing about the whole, computer digital world is that the lack of, time restrictions or space restrictions in, internet magazines and stuff.
Yeah, that's the good thing about it. Awesome.
Doesn't matter how long your story is.
So. No, it doesn't. No. Cool. Well, I think we've covered a good chunk of your background. Anything else you want to make sure, that we missed today that you want to highlight here on what you've done? And, gosh, it's been a number of years, right?
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground. Nothing really springs to mind. I'm glad we got to talk about the entrainment stuff. And I always like talking about the good old days. I'm an old guy, so of course I'm trying not to be that grumpy guy. So, well, it's not as good as it was back then,
Right.
Although it's kind of easy to get like that.
Yeah.
I guess if I had to, the message would be support the conservation organizations that are, learning and figuring out what these natural resources need.
Yeah.
And I'll just go back for 1 second to the Orvis connection with both Lee and Perk. Their big thing was especially if you have some kind of a business that relies on fishing or hunting or the outdoors, you gotta give back. You've got to support the conservation organizations and spend your money and your time. That's as Perk said at one point. He said that's the cost of
doing business.
Cost of entry.
Yeah, cost of entry. No, I love that.
So me too. And so that's really important, I think.
Yeah, and that's a big thing for us too. We love supporting all the good conservation work. Well, all right, so Jim, we're going to do our Toyota trivia segment today, and say this is a great question. So the way this is going to work is we're going to ask a question, and for those listening, they can go. We're going to have a post on Instagram where people can just answer the question there, and whoever gets the right question, I'm just going to select somebody randomly out of the people who got the right question, and then we're going to give them some swag from Toyota and Wet Fly Swing here. So. And so the question is the Bow River we've been talking about today, it flows into eventually, where does it flow into? So that's the question. Very straightforward. And if you know the answer, make sure to mention at Toyota Prairies and at Wet Fly Swing today. And some lucky person's going to win some swag here today. So good. So we got our Toyota trivia. So this is the start of our random segment, Jim, and I love doing these because they're always fun. First off, we talking Toyota. Are you a big? What type of car do you drive? Are you like a truck, or what are you driving around?
Well, I think everybody's going to like this. We're a 2 Toyota family.
There you go.
I have a 2006 4Runner. With, here I go again, 440,000 kilometers on it.
Oh, kilometers, yeah, which is about probably, half that or something like that.
Half that miles, yeah. And then we also have, that's the main hunting and fishing vehicle, and we have a 2012 RAV4.
And a RAV4, yep. There you go.
And we have, we really, really like them both, and they give us no trouble, and they're exactly what we need.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, Toyota is great because that's what you hear. It's just like you don't have to worry about many problems. They just kind of
Exactly. That's kind of why we got.
they just kind of go. Yeah, it's awesome. No, good. So that's a good shout out. Toyota's going to love that. We actually did a podcast that's coming up with probably the most expert person in up in your neck of the woods for Toyota, and he described all the new tech that's coming out and all these cars and trucks and stuff. We talked about Tundras, and yeah, it's really interesting. You know, I mean, like gas mileage, we talked about it, right? That's a big part. I don't think they make a V8 anymore. You know, it's all they've gone. Yeah, so like even the Tundra I have, it has a turbo V6. You know, that's partly for gas mileage, trying to get better mileage. Plus all of course, the Toyota, you know, the first Prius, right? The hybrid. That was
Okay, sure.
you know, they're still leading the way there. But so good. So we got our shout out to Toyota. You're a Toyota driver, so that's great. And then as far as like we talk trips, you know, it sounds like you've been around a little bit. Do you have any trips, travel bucket list places you haven't been to you'd still love to get out to?
Well, yeah, it's a pretty big list. For whatever reason, and part of it is because of my living in these oddball ways, means that I've never been particularly wealthy. I've never really been able to do the saltwater thing.
Oh, yeah.
And that would be what's the main thing that's missing. I fished quite a lot of the, you know, the North American West, and I've been to New Zealand a few
cool.
times,
Wow.
not recently. But, and actually fished through Pennsylvania a couple times, but I have not done the tropical saltwater thing, and that would be the main thing that I haven't done but would like to do.
Do you have a species you would love to hit first, or?
I don't know. Everybody says start with bonefish, and then when you get bored with them, then, you know, try the tarpon and permit. And I'm sure you like everybody else there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. We're heading to blue bonefish, Belize this year, and actually had Chris, my assistant, was already down there and had a great trip and with bones. His first time down.
Oh, all right.
Caught a bunch. Yeah, caught a bunch using the we talked about earlier. But you know, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I think that it's unlimited. That's always the challenge, right? We have a limited amount of time. We can't go everywhere. So, you know, how do we prioritize it? So that's great.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So while you're driving, so again, keeping our random questions going. So while you're on the road driving to your next destination, maybe you're fishing the bow. What do you listen to on the radio? Are you listening to podcast, music, or quiet? What's that look like?
I would probably listen. I listen to either a sports station, maybe.
Okay.
Or we have a really good radio station in Alberta that's very eclectic and plays all kinds of music. And that would be the thing I listen to, because I know I'm going to hear things that I'm not going to like everything I hear, but I'm going to hear things I wouldn't hear anywhere else.
What's this radio station?
Yeah, it's called CKUA.
CKUA Alberta.
Yeah, CKUA.com. You can look them up. It's a fabulous.
Yeah, there it is. CKUA.com right there. We can listen. We'll put that. We'll be listening to that on the way out today. Arts and culture. This is great.
Yeah. In people, if they want to see what kind of music they play, they've got a playlist, and you can look up.
Listen live. There's a listen live. Again, I think that's what's amazing about today in this world. You know, 40 years ago, you wouldn't be able to just listen to it right now, but now we can go over and actually listen to it. And so we got that. Awesome. So we got some music to take out of here. What about your sports? Sounds like is this all hockey, or do you listen to some other sports?
No, I like hockey. I'm very, very excited about the Olympic hockey that's going to start tomorrow. And I'm also a really big baseball fan. I'm really, really.
Oh, nice.
I mean, I don't know if you're a baseball guy, but
yeah, that was one of my sports.
When the Blue Jays went to Game 7 of the World Series last year, this whole country was nuts, and it was really disappointing.
Oh yeah, they lost. That's right. I watched some of that. Yeah.
Extra innings of Game 7. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Gosh, I remember when I'm not as much into it, but you know, baseball has been in my life, my entire life. But I remember the Blue Jays when what was his name? The guy, the walk-off homer back in the.
Joe Carter.
Yeah, Joe Carter.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Right back, and they won back-to-back. I mean, that is when I think of Toronto. That's what I think of.
Well, that's a good one. They're putting a statue up of Joe Carter, I think, outside. Yeah.
And did you play any sports as a kid or any of that?
I played hockey more than anything else, and I played baseball a little bit. That's about it. And I was, you know, fishing and hunting and stuff. So
yeah,
I didn't stay with the other ones very long.
Sure. Awesome. Well, this has been great, Jim. I think we could probably leave it there today. This has been, always good to catch up with folks like yourself who have such a history and all the connections to all the great anglers. Maybe give us a heads up again if people want to follow up with you. Is it just McLennanflyfishing.com? Is that the best place if they want to connect and follow you?
Yep, that's the website's got. We didn't really get talking much about it, but my wife and I have our main sort of thing, and we're kind of retiring.
Oh, yeah,
from
yeah.
it
Let's
now.
hear that. Well, give us a little take on that. Yeah. What do you want to say about that website?
We both have done a lot of teaching of fly fishing. That's what you'll mostly find on our website, and with beginner schools and sort of intermediate level fly fishing schools and on the water stuff and classroom stuff and some corporate things and stuff like that. So we really, since about 2004, that's been our main kind of focus, has been on teaching fly fishing. And now I've kind of retired from the teaching. Linda's still doing some.
Okay.
We're cutting it down a little bit. We've got grandkids and stuff we like to spend time with, and
Yeah.
in the summer. So, but that's a big part of what we've been for the last, whatever it is, 20 years or
20
something.
years.
So,
Okay. So, yeah. So you're still doing. So if we were to put together a little group of listeners who wanted to come up and maybe do some fishing up there and do a school instruction, would you still have time for that potentially?
oh yeah, we could definitely figure out. I mean, that's the kind of thing we do, is we can also put something together for people who
Oh,
are
yeah.
looking for.
And I see on the instructors, I'm just looking on your page here for the private group instructors. I see you have Allard, one of your instructors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we know him. I fished with him out in BC.
Oh,
We fished the Skeena. We're working with Brian Niska. He's one of our podcast hosts.
I know Brian a little bit. Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, Allard's been working for us for years.
Yeah, Allard's awesome. Yeah, Allard's super awesome. So shout out to Allard. And actually, I see you got a bunch of So I think obviously there are tons of connections here. We've been doing some. We have a big spay contingent, people that love swinging flies for steelhead. So Brian's been awesome, and he has in the bucket is his show that he does in our network.
Oh, okay. Is he still in Whistler?
No, he's up in Terrace.
Okay.
Yeah,
I knew him when he was at Whistler.
Yeah, he owns the lodge there in Terrace, right on the Skeena.
Okay. Oh, great.
And so yeah, we met Allard up there. But no, it's all obviously fly fishing's this tiny niche. It's always cool to make the connections. But yeah, we'll put a link out to that. I see you have some good stuff, and we'll keep in touch with you. Maybe down the line we'll connect, and maybe if you're still doing it, we'll follow up with you on a school there.
Sure, that would be great.
Okay, all right, Jim. Thanks for all your time today. We'll be in touch, and we'll talk to you then.
Okay, thanks, Dave. You guys keep up the good work.
All right, wanted to give a big thanks to Jim. If you get a chance, check in with Jim at McLennanFlyfish.com. That's McLennanFlyfish.com, and let him know you heard this podcast. We are excited to hopefully get up to the bow in the coming years, and we'll be connecting with Jim as we go. Also want to let you know we're kicking off the big dry fly school with On to Mark Lodge. That starts next week, so if you're interested in a trip or a spot, send me an email, dave@wetflyswing.com. Going to be a big trip this year, going a little bit earlier, and we're going to hit a different hatch. So if you want to get the dry fly school and fish with me, I will be there, and some other listeners of the podcast, send me an email. All right, it is late in the night. So late, it's almost morning. It's raining out there. It's cool. It's wintertime still. But spring is right around the corner. I'm excited to get into it. We all know, especially in those colder environments, we're getting ready to get out and go fishing. Hope you're getting some flies tied. Hope you're enjoying everything around. And appreciate you for stopping all the way to the end on this podcast. Thanks again. We'll see you on that next one.